Okay, hey, it's 6 o'clock. Let's get started. Let's call the meeting to order. First up, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up is approval of agenda. Sean?
Sorry, I was writing. I'd like to make a motion in section G to add a number 2, student reports.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so next up is comments from the public. Andy?
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 comments tonight. The first commenter is from Madam Yee. Stated she was looking forward to seeing how unspent federal funds in the ESSER fund were allocated. Jane will be able to show that a little bit later here. Requested information about how district is using the federal literacy funding and requesting the board to establish long-term educational improvement plan with goal, strategy, timeline, and progress report to the public. Second commenter is Dana Lovejoy, GAEA president, stated the GAE presented the district with a petition at the June 10th, 2024 board meeting that stated 4 priorities, stated the improved budget does not align with their priorities of the GAEA, expressed concern about district's communication regarding the GAEA priorities, expressed concern about the safe working conditions for staff and students, and requested the board to settle the contract with teachers. Those are the only 2. The full comments will be in the board meeting minutes. That's it.
Thank you.
I got to ask, I have a process question. So we had a budget committee, and we had hearings, and we approved a budget,
Yes.
right? So what was the timeline of us doing that versus the information that was presented on June 10th? Was our budget done and approved at that point, or did?
Did we not have a final hearing on the 24th with an adoption of the budget? June 24th, I believe.
Okay. And so was the information referenced, for lack of a better term, part of the record for the budget hearing? And
There was one commenter from GAEA at that time. I think the comments were made in public at that time.
okay, I don't recall anything in the record or that I received around budget relating to priorities. I'm glad we've got those, but in my mind, it didn't sync up as part of the budget process.
Okay, next up, board business. First up is board goals. Anyone have any comments here? Go ahead, Roger.
I do. We're grateful that the school year is starting, and it would appear with, in many cases, a lot of success. One of the constant themes is we need more resources, and more resources require more money. And we know that in the state's last budget, that the state's public employees were budgeted to and received or will receive 6% COLA each of the 2 years in the budget, while the K through 12 budget was developed based on COLAs of 3 and 3. So we're 6% short as a matter of consistency of where we should be. And it's a lot of money. My guess is between $3 and $4 million. Probably. We've talked about it a little bit. We've talked a lot more about the resources we don't have to not be able to do the things that we want to do. And we hope that issue of the funding gap would be resolved. It doesn't appear that without more aggressive pursuit of that by a lot of people who are involved, that it's not going to get resolved. And it just seems to me that we would be remiss if we didn't include in our board goals direct asks for those funds to be put on a consistent level with other employees whose paychecks are derived from state budgets. So if we can add it, I for one will start more aggressively making our case. I don't know where that gets us, but it just doesn't feel very good to just sit back and accept this, to me.
Okay. Anyone else?
For myself, I had two that came immediately to mind. One is just continuing to improve transparency between parents and the district as a whole, both on what goes on in their kids' classrooms and also with just overall grading processes that they go through as they go through the school system. And also just in order to provide a better transparency of the status of the district, whether that be financial or any other stance that we have with the public, so everyone knows where we stand on issues, whether that's funds that we've received from a grant or where we stand in the budget, just to be as open and transparent as possible. My other item is tied to that. We've mentioned somewhat in the past stability in terms of finances, both short and long term, whether that's current contract negotiation, future contract negotiation, or building of new facilities, upkeeping new facilities, just to maintain the status of that long term to make sure that it's a continually viable, given the uncertainty we receive year in, year out from the state, as Roger stated.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, the priorities align with the superintendent priorities. We want to make sure we have high-level student outcomes. We want to get that through really excellent instruction. We want to get that through solid behavior management, and we want to get it through making sure our facilities are a good place for kids to learn, and those are the goals. So one thing that I haven't really mentioned, and it's been bothering me a little bit, is we don't have a measurable academic achievement goal for kids. We don't have any measurable student outcomes as part of the goals, and I think maybe that's an oversight. We should have that. At least a growth goal, if not a hard target of how many kids are passing tests, but because we want to be able to measure the results of what we think is going to work, which is focusing on instruction and managing behaviors and having students become better at reading, writing, math, science, et cetera. So.
Okay. Well, first off, obviously, it's hard not to agree with what Roger's saying. We get a large portion of our funding from the state, and they're not even giving us what they say they should be giving us, So us advocating for that, I think, is important. I think at the grass level, which is here. So I think that's a good idea. I agree. We're Andy's board goals, and we're going to stay with those. But for me, I want our school district to be a district where students and staff thrive and feel fortunate to be part of GAPS. I believe to achieve this goal, our academic performance needs to improve. And to do that, our absenteeism and behaviors must improve. I think Andy and staff have us on the right path. Is there a long ways to go? Yes. Do we need more money? Do we need at least the amount of money that the state says we need? Yeah, we do. How do we get that? I don't know, but we sure need to work our ways towards that. Roger, do you have a motion that you want to add something to, the board goals? Or should we come back to this next meeting? And you can craft something up.
Well, I would like to add board goals, and I'm wordsmithing as I go here.
Okay.
A vigorous pursuit of a budget allocation that reflects the same level of cost of living adjustments that all state employees received in the biennium in those state budgets.
Okay, I think I would include in that the idea that they give us the amount of money that their own system says they should be giving each of the
Well,
districts.
that's a different conversation because
Yeah.
I think that's there's a model.
Yep.
What's the name of it?
The quality funding,
Right. I think there's still probably a couple billion short of that. I'm not that aspirational tonight, but and this happens at a time where they're adding another $500 million to the Education Equalization Fund. I mean, there's a place where I can identify the money, and it's simple. Just move it.
Right.
And so, Chris, if I stopped at what I wanted my motion to be, or did you get that? And is that?
I think what it would be best is if we did some wordsmithing with it and bring it back so
Okay.
that we have the wording correct and it goes through so that everybody can see it and then you vote on it at the next meeting. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on from board goals.
Well, before we do, I just want to make sure I understand. Sure. You're talking about the board's relationship with the state in terms of advocating for funding. That's in a nutshell, right?
And our goals, correct.
Okay, I just want to, yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. I was just trying to operationalize that in terms of what that means, looks like for us and from an action standpoint.
You're right.
Okay, just checking. But I mean, I agree with you. I just was trying to understand what that looks like in terms of action. So, we'll wordsmith it.
Okay, we'll come back to that on the 23rd, I think is our next one. Okay, E2, federal funding early reading programs. Jane, I understand you're going to help us understand ESSER expenses.
Yes. I had presented to you at the last meeting just the total in the different categories because all of the ESSER funds are fully expended. And we will finish that claim this week, hopefully. And the ESSER 3 was about 15 million. And when I came to the district about 2 years ago, Andy had told me, we have 20 million in projects and we don't have that much in ESSER funds. And so at that time, the board took action and the board took away like Tahkeena, the project for Tahkeena, and we reduced some of the other projects. And the goal in all of that was that we wanted to be able to purchase curriculum. And so I divided this report up to show you in 23, 25, we achieved some of those goals. We purchased some curriculum, we purchased technology. We were able to update our teachers' computers and our office staff, as well as Chromebooks for all of the students. And so that was a reduction of over 4 million in projects that we made with those changes. But when Andy came, those projects had been provided to ODE, they had been approved by ODE, And all of that was in place. And so I just wanted to show you, we made those changes. And in 23-25, we expended 4.6 million.
Okay, is this paperwork going to be up on the post-action?
Put it in the updated board.
Okay. All right. Roger, something you wanted to share?
Well, it was at our first meeting that there was a list. We didn't take an action item in the first meeting, but it was presented funding at South Shore for sure. That they had the modulars and they were 10 years beyond what the expected life would be and in rough shape. So we started approving what could be considered capital projects with those funds right away for a number of reasons, including creating the space necessary and anticipations of what was going to happen. And in addition, and so a couple of things happened. One was we did continue to ask, what is it we should be doing differently, or what is it we could be doing to help teachers and students overcome the COVID shutdown and to accelerate improvement. And Superintendent Saxton at the time, it was pretty open dialogue about looking around to see who was doing what. And we were all in uncharted waters, right? And ultimately, teachers did great jobs. It looked, we got to a point where it became really obvious that we needed more mental health help, mental health counselors. There were no mental health counselors to be had. The county also had mental health counseling money that couldn't be utilized because we couldn't staff it. So we also were very concerned and very reluctant about creating a budget cliff with this money, hiring permanent positions with one-time funds that would go away. And it was the board's decision, I think, unanimously or by consensus, that was the way we wanted to proceed. And all of that was before Superintendent Gardner ever got here. And that's what we did. And people today, a number of years later, can look back and say, you could have done this or you should have done that. And it's all arguable. That the fact of the matter for me is that I don't think anybody can dispute that we spent the money in a way that got value for taxpayers over time, that today we're not figuring out how to try to replace modulars that are 15 years beyond their expectancy. So I feel good about what we did with the resources we've had at the time we've done that. And that leaves the question of should there be additional resources for training to reach our third grade grading goals? So my question is, we already have a plan, and is that plan funded, and how are we doing?
So we'll let Bruce talk in just a minute, just with kind of what we have going. Ryan raises a good point. Are there measurable goals in reading? And typically, every school improvement plan does have a math goal and a reading goal in terms of the number of students. So, and you will see those typically at your board presentations. So there is a measurable reading goal for each school in the district. There typically is an improvement plan that supports that as well. And Bruce can tell you a little bit about some unofficial moves that we think we've made in the last couple of years. We have been working on literacy training, and that has been a piece of what we've done. But Bruce, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, Superintendent. Just to talk about a few things that were brought up. One, in terms of our reading scores district-wide. Preliminarily, we're anticipating 42% of our students meeting or exceeding the reading benchmark, which is a 6% increase from last year. That's pretty good growth. That's come about for several reasons. One is we're in the third year, starting the third year of a K-8 curriculum adoption. Universal screeners 3 times a year, K-8 for reading to first determine where students are at in terms of if they're at or above grade level performance. Those that are not at grade level, there's a range of interventions that we use depending upon how far below grade level reading they are. Everyone uses ECRI, which is Enhanced Core Reading Instruction K2. Those are regimented protocols that everybody implements in the same way, K2. And as the superintendent just stated, there's been a significant amount of training that's gone into our reading instruction around the science of reading, lesson design and instruction, and very designated, consistent protocols across the district. And that's definitely proven to be effective. So we're excited to see what the state confirms in terms of our preliminary data, but that's anticipated, and that's great news. The other thing that was brought up was attendance and getting students to school. I know that was a big thing last year, and it will continue to be. It's a nationwide situation in order to get students to school, and they can't learn unless they're there, right? Last year, we had 4 schools that engaged in a pilot program with Ross Davis and the ESD, and they've had some significant growth. Both Waverly and Oak were pilot schools at the elementary level, and they showed an average increase of 19.8% in their in their attendance. That's 9 students attending 90% or greater. That is a huge growth curve. All other elementary schools posted an average of 14.4% growth. And we will be adding other elementary schools this year as their first year in this program, and Waverly and Oak will be participating in year 2. So they'll be implementing the same strategies they did last year and then adding on to see what kind of growth they can get in year 2. Additionally, Calapooya and Memorial were pilot schools at the middle school level, and they posted a 14.3% increase in their attendance rate. Again, that's pretty successful, a 14% growth in 1 year. This year, all 4 middle schools will be involved in that program. On top of that, we consider this to be very worthwhile. We'll be developing what's called a community of practice. We have 3 meetings designated for all schools to attend, whether they're involved in the pilot or not, to look at those strategies, identify ways in which to increase attendance, and get kids there on a more regular basis. So, as with anything, when you put an intentional focus on things, you establish consistent guidelines and consistent implementation efforts, you tend to see results. But to see almost a 20% growth in 2 schools, especially some that have our most impoverished students in the district, that is a huge kudos to those schools. Math, we're anticipating a 1% increase to 25%. We're still working on that. We do use universal screeners 3 times a year to identify which students are at or above grade level and to identify interventions as well. Many of the title schools, we use iReady to do our screeners. Many of the title schools purchased iReady My Path, which is a program that's designed to take students from where they're currently at. It designs specific interventions along the way based on how they're performing. It provides intervention along the way. And then we're hoping to use that to close some of those achievement gaps and having students understand those foundational math skills a little bit better as we move forward. So that's just a quick snapshot of where we are.
So last year, when people would talk about the attendance, they were in a pilot. So it sounds like that's no longer a pilot. It worked and we rolled it out to everybody.
Well, we aren't rolling out to everyone, just in terms of the level of support that's needed. So that program was proven to be successful at those two schools. So we will add additional schools
Okay.
at year one, and Oak and Waverly will continue in the second year of that program. Just like Memorial and Calapooya will start year two, we're adding both of the other middle schools in that year one phase. So they'll implement what the other schools did year one, and then the next schools will go to year two implementation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then I had a question about the screeners. Last year when we got the reports and, they go through the year. And so the question was asked, do those screeners that reflect potential state test scores? And the answer we got, I think, was yes and no, right? It was yes, they're designed to do that, and no, they don't for reasons that include there's no writing in the reading test and kids aren't motivated to do as well in the state test. So I guess I want to know if that's, because if the reason we ask is because if those tests had borne themselves out, we would have had significant growth in our reading scores because those I-ready scores were significantly higher than our state testing scores.
Right. According to Sue, when I talked to Sue Luthra, those spring tests were very closely indicative of where we scored as a district in the state reading test.
Which means we did grow quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Good, okay.
Yeah. And that was also in math as well.
Yeah, oh, good.
So we had pretty good prediction of where we would have landed
Okay.
based on those spring screening scores.
That's what I wanted, that's what I want to make sure is those screeners are providing value for that.
For sure.
Because the state tests themselves are more of an autopsy.
Yeah.
Like, once you get the scores, you can't do anything about them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why we're looking to do that 3 times a year.
Perfect.
Okay, hey, thank you for the info. As has been a big topic, obviously funding's a big deal and where we put the money's a big deal. And it's great to hear that we're getting some results, that things are getting better in the early learning. So, okay, next up, F, superintendent comments.
So just a few general comments. I'll follow up a little bit with Roger's questions there. We do face, we have education lobbyists. We have an education lobby. I'm in a funding coalition of school administrators who are focused on funding. We are generally placed, though, to where we can only speak about how to improve education's funding based on our needs. We do not really have much scope to be able to say, hey, we want what the other guys have, or, the SEIU, the state employees. And so we are working really hard to put together something that can advocate for increased funding at the state for K-12 education, right? And so it is on that basis that we're building it. The SEIU, of course, it's a different funding mechanism. They fund us on a current service level with a 20-year look back, which I think tends to wash out years of high inflation. They are bargaining with SEIU in the spring next year. And so it's a different way of allocating. But we have to overcome that. So we're thinking about the different ways that we can do that. I'll let you frame. Go ahead.
No, I won't. We can have this conversation outside of here. I might.
So just in terms of school start this year, I think one of the really overwhelming things is that there seems to be a lot of smooth starts going on in the schools. There seems to be some maturity to many of the buildings and their systems. And just had a lot of conversation. We were out in all the different buildings. The leadership team spent quite a bit of time out last week. But there was just a good feeling about the kids returning, knowing what to do. Most people have got a pretty good start to their school-wide behavior processes. And we're also, Bruce, as well as myself and the other people, we are out in buildings right now looking for what kind of kids do you have that are creating concern early? And who is your connection in terms of being able to get support for that behavior so that we can really jump on those things this year and just really respond to fires. I think that Krista in the back, in our SPED, I think we've done a much closer look at our students who are coming into our schools from early intervention. Those students sometimes can be a little bit unpredictable in terms of the service and the placement, but we are spending a lot more time looking at that really in a very focused way this year. Hopefully we can begin to smooth those things out as we begin to see those things happening. And so those things will be important. Want to talk a little bit about enrollment. I think that we have schools where enrollment has increased. At the same time, we have other schools who have an enrollment that is decreased from last year. And we're going to have to watch that here over the next couple of weeks. Typically, enrollment does not really become complete in our schools with higher numbers of poverty in them. Those families do not always tend to enroll their students on the first day of school. We have to spend some time getting those students out. And so it's a little too early at this point to say that enrollment is up or down, just because it's occurring in some really varied ways in different schools. And then that's about it, and we can move on to the staff survey. If you guys have any questions about those things, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Generally, the enrollment is first or second week of October. Do we have a more definitive answer?
Yeah, typically you will move students out that are 10-day drops. You will be removing students from your records who, if the family moved to another district, you get a records request for, and you'll send the file to that school, and that will drop as well. And typically, new students will show as well. And so we have some schools that look like they have diminished in enrollment, even though they are not poverty schools. But we have other schools that have grown by quite a bit. And so as we look to solve the problems that are created by higher numbers of students, one of the things that we would not do is just add staff now and then have a school with very small class sizes, continue to have small class sizes, but we've added FTE. This probably isn't the year to do that. So, and you guys will remember the last 3 years since you've become board members, we have never met enrollment projections in this district. It has been lower for 3 years. And so we're watching that very closely. Hopefully we can come in even or slightly up. Can't predict it yet.
It's because we didn't project decreases on purpose, right? I mean,
Yeah, we do roll the numbers up and kind of live with that, but if we then have another year where we don't quite get everybody, then that's a diminish. Okay, let's go to the survey. So this last year, we worked with our collaborative steering committee, which is a committee we're going to commit to as a piece of our governance structure in the district. It has GA-EA leadership, GA-ACE or classified administrators, and we want to make sure that that group is always going to be the group that will conduct a survey and help us to respond to the survey. It also will be the group that will govern how we roll out instructional planning. Like if there's something new that we're going to do, it will have to go through that committee. And I think one of the things that has just been overwhelming is people's sense of just being overloaded with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different things that they had to learn. And I think the pacing of everything we've asked people to do here in the last 3 or 4 years led us to, let's pick the things that are important and let's move forward in a really ordered way. So one of the ways that we become a learning district is that we figure out what we need to do more work on or what you need to change. And this committee, through the survey, is going to help with that. And so if we go to the second slide, we'll just kind of take you through this. These are the people that were on the collaborative steering committee. And basically the role of that committee is an overall vision and framework for adult and student learning and gaps. The survey results here, everybody had open-ended comments that they could fill out, what we do well and what we can do better. And so those things have been kind of reduced into general themes rather than specific comments. You'll notice that 270 teachers, or about 45%, responded to the survey, and about 131 classified staff member, or about 20%, responded there. One of the things that classified don't always have is access to a computer within a given time frame. And so we're going to be working on getting that over 400 or so. I mean, it would be great to have 100% of our staff respond to both of those. So this was a general question from the certified of the district. Again, 270 responses. And it shows that about 40.7 strongly agree that their school is a good place to work and learn. And almost 50% agreed, which is, when taken together, it's a pretty good number. Let's go to the next slide. This is future work plans. Which of the following best describes your immediate professional plans? And you can see that 84.4 say they want to continue teaching at their current school. And the red, which I can't remember the number, I want to say it was about 5%, continue teaching in this district, but leave this school. And then you can see smaller options: leave education entirely, work in education but pursue an administrative, continue teaching in the state but in a different district. Let's go to the next one. This is classified staff's job satisfaction. It's a little over 90% between agree and strongly agree. Again, smaller total number of people that were able to respond to this. We did this in about 5 days at the end of the school year last year. And so our goal will be to expand that and to really work on getting more of a response. This is certified, several questions on teacher leadership. And you can see generally where it's red and blue, it's agree or strongly agree. Teachers are encouraged to participate in leadership roles. Teachers are trusted to make sound professional decisions. The faculty has an effective process for making group decisions. Teachers are effective leaders in this school. Those are the 4 questions above. So if you take a look at number 3, which had the highest disagree number, that's that the faculty has an effective process for making group decisions. Let's go to the next one. Classified, very similar. This is about classified leadership. And you can see on the little more agree than strongly agree. And if you take a look at the 2 questions on the bottom, 3 and 4, classified staff are effective leaders in this school, and classified staff have an appropriate level of influence in this school. Little more disparate there. That's something that we have to be aware of. Certified satisfaction in school leadership. The school leadership consistently supports teachers, a pretty high percentage of agree and strongly agree. The faculty and leadership have a shared vision. Teachers are held to high professional standards for delivering culturally relevant instruction. Teachers in this school receive feedback about their teaching on an ongoing basis, which had the highest number, but generally wasn't, like a significant disagreement. Let's keep going. Classified satisfaction with school leadership. The faculty and leadership have a shared vision, an atmosphere of trust. Classified staff feel comfortable raising issues and concerns that are important to them. That was the largest number, not a huge piece of the whole. But you can see that that would be the highest number of these 4 questions in terms of did the staff feel comfortable? And then on the other side, you can see that school leadership consistently supported classified staff. Certified satisfaction on professional development. We think this is indicative of some of the past, and we definitely have to take a step forward and move in a different direction. It goes back a little bit to the idea that we were going to add on at this time a reading training, right? When the staff has told us very clearly over the last year, we don't need one more thing piled on here. We need to just continue to work and get better at what we're doing. So you can see professional development. Teachers have a confidence that it improves teachers' abilities. An appropriate amount of time is provided for professional development. The second set of graphs up on the top. Number 3, an appropriate amount of time is provided for implementation of professional development. You can see that number has drawn off. That is obviously illustrating that teachers don't often have enough time to just put things into action that they have learned. And so That's where the work starts. And of course, we've freed up a bunch of PLC time this year for exactly that to happen. And they're aligned, professional development is aligned. Next one. Classified, you can see the graphs. You can see that there is, for the first time, these are the significant disagreements, right? Sufficient resources are available for PDMI classification. Appropriate amount of time is provided for professional development. PD is data-driven. PD opportunities are aligned with the school's improvement plan. So from a classified perspective, you can see that there's disagreement with those 4 statements. Behavior management. And if you take a look here, again, you see a significant level in the orange columns throughout. The school has supports in place to support behavior. School administration consistently applied rules for conduct across all student groups. Teachers consistently apply rules for student conduct. And the school supplies the materials, resources, and training necessary for me to support students' mental health, physical health, and nutritional needs. Next one. Managing student conduct from the classified perspective. The second one stands out. Students at this school follow rules of conduct. I think in general there is an agreement around the first one. Policies and procedures about student conduct are clearly understood by the faculty. Some disagreement there. School administration consistently enforce rules for student conduct. And you can see the rest going across. Let's go to the next one. So we will be sending this out to you and we'll also be putting these up, but we worked with a team of teachers and a team of classified as well to review all of the comments. And what we did, is it possible to click on that, Chris? Like just the certified? So this is something, and we can send this out to you as well. The committee came together this summer in 2 or 3 meetings, at least 2, and we worked on what are we doing well, which was a supportive environment, building administration, culture and climate in schools, collaboration of staff and committed teachers, commitment to students, behavior, feeding kids, success of students, health and well-being, love of students, and then improving district-wide systems. Our school is making significant strides in enhancing communication by fostering two-way dialogue, promoting inclusivity, and prioritizing the well-being of staff and students. So even within that, there was attempting but needing to improve. And then, of course, communication. Areas for growth. The foundation of trust between teachers and school district is paramount to fostering a supportive and effective educational environment. This mutual trust ensures open communication, shared goals, and a commitment to student success. It empowers teachers to innovate in their classrooms, knowing their insights and expertise are valued and respected. Likewise, administrators rely on the dedication and professionalism of teachers to implement policies and initiatives that enhance educational outcomes. Together, this collaborative trust cultivates a culture of collaboration, continuous improvement, and ultimately excellence in education. So areas for growth, staffing and resources. This goes back, Roger, to what you said. Obviously, how we are able to marshal our efforts, working with Oregon School Boards Association, the OEA, to try to put something together that can raise our revenue. A culture of action. To enhance our culture of action, our school district should focus on building stronger trust, valuing staff contributions, and engaging in transparent action steps that respond to staff needs. Behavior and mental health. And I think this is something that is nationwide, how we respond to behavioral needs and mental health. trauma, consistency, and then a district system. Finally, workload. We want balance, prep time, and useful and timely professional development, and there at the bottom again, with time to implement.
Okay, so can you go back to workload?
Okay?
So as a practical matter, what's that mean? What's that look like?
Oh, I think my sense would be it is not, like, it is giving people some time to implement what they've learned or to do the work of grading and preparing for a day's teaching. I think that we have typically rolled out initiatives that have taken more time and taken some of the time that you would use to begin to do something well. Workload, I think, could also mean the number of kids, for example, in a classroom or across a high school schedule of classes, the number of teachers, the number of students that a teacher teaches, the number of classes that a teacher teaches. So there's a lot of different things I think that could fall into that.
So is there a process we can use to flesh that out and put more detail to how we're going to do that over time? I mean, not tonight during this meeting, but
Yeah,
as presented, that can mean
a lot of different
a
things.
lot of different things to a lot of different people. And
Yeah.
it'd be nice if we worked to get everybody on the same page, at least to what that means, and then we can figure out how to try to get there, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of complexity at the different levels as well.
Okay.
Let's go to the
Thank you.
classified, Chris. Thank you. This is the data disaggregation of classified. This is what we're doing well. They saw that staff have observed better communication within the district, including timely updates and clear information from the district office. One of the things, What to Know Wednesdays, which is published every week, just some up-to-dating, was acknowledged several times in both the certified and classified. Acknowledgement of efforts to listen to staff concerns and gather input, which helps in addressing issues more effectively. Example, communication has been better lately and district communication through emails. Support for staff and students. The district is doing well in providing support for students, meeting diverse needs and ensuring they have necessary resources. Staff recognition, recognizing the hard work and dedication of staff members. Classified and certified staff are welcoming and inviting. Staff and teachers care about kids and are doing their best to meet needs. Positive relationships and teamwork. There's a collaborative environment. Exceptional leadership. And I think this is written from a perspective of their feelings about building principles, which I think is awesome because I really feel like the leaders in the buildings in this district are really good. An example of one of the comments, we have a great family at West. It's a fun and happy place to work. And building level administrators are making classified feel heard. Let's move on to improvements. We could be better at staff support and well-being, increase wages, the need for better pay, mental health resources. There is a significant call for more mental health support for staff, the stress and burnout from handling daily crises, professional development, providing more training and development opportunities for both new hires and current staff to ensure they feel confident and supported in their roles. We need more classified staff to support the needs of students. We can't continue under this stressful load. Behavior management and classroom management. There is a strong need for more behavioral support for students, those in crisis. Consistent discipline. Staff have requested more consistent enforcement of discipline policies. And you did see the graph that said kids don't always follow the rules. We have so many children in crisis daily. We have children punching, kicking, biting, spitting in our faces, and pinching. Sometimes it takes 2 staff for 1 child. And then communication and decision-making, improving communication between district offices, administration, and staff to ensure everyone is informed and aligned. Inclusion in decision-making. Staff desire a more inclusive approach, feeling their voices and experiences should be considered in the district's plans and policies. And then district level administrators are not being classified feel heard, a level of disconnect that is astounding. And so those were summarized from sometimes multiple pages of comments that people made. Then the most commonly occurring themes were then attached and kind of gathered into these themes. And so we have all of the survey, which we will be looking to move up to the website. Staff were shown these surveys and the results in In-Service Week. And again, want to appreciate the GAEA and GAACE people who came in over the summer to work through and build those comments. I think one of the things, a comment was made by a teacher on the Collaborative Steering Committee. I've done so many surveys in this district, I've never seen the results of one. And so publishing this out, now we have to go to work on these things, and we hope we can make a difference this year. Any comments or questions?
Sure, my comment would be, I heard the same thing, from staff saying, why are we doing surveys when we don't get the results back, right? So I think it's really important for us to share the results, both good and bad. And I think that's a perfect example of what this is, good and bad. And now we got to make the changes, figure out how we can make it better.
So it's not just responding to the survey. We want to make sure that as we get around to next year, we want to improve the quality of the questions. There's a couple that it could be interpreted both ways. We want to put new questions in if we think they're appropriate. We want to increase the participation rate. We think there's some obvious moves we can make to do that. And then continue to use the data to shape professional development, what people are being trained on. We can use this as a way to, we can cite the evidence from this as we apply for grants. And then we want to make sure that we present here to inform the community about the work that we're doing. I'd just like to thank all the teachers and classified who worked on the survey, and some of them are here tonight. And I'd also like to just thank the general staff of the district for those who did take part in it. Hopefully we'll build some confidence and move into next year in a better place where people can say, hey, we saw you do some things on this or that, and we're going to get better. That's all I got.
Okay, next up is board reports. Sean, you have anything?
I do not, no.
Roger?
Board reports. No board reports.
Anything you'd like to discuss?
Well, sure. I think it was the second day of school on Thursday. I was up early in the morning trying to get irrigation going out of North Albany, and as I pulled out, I got behind a school bus. And I initially wasn't so enthused about that. And the second stop that the bus came to on Nebergal was a young gal and her two kids. One of them must have been kindergarten, maybe first, and the other one was a couple years older. And the little boy in particular wasn't so enthused about getting on the bus. And there was a lot of kisses and a lot of hugs, and she was blowing them kisses once they got on the bus. And it was just just a reminder to me, as if I needed one, of the entrust that we get from the public and from parents to do the best we can with kids. And just, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this organization. I learn more every day, it seems like. But in the end, it's about kids, and it's about those parents who send their kids, put their kids on that bus to come to school and to get those kids a chance to get an education and a better life. And it really reset my focus and the importance of what we do and how we do that. Thank you. It's not a report, though.
Okay. Ryan, anything?
No, well said. I mean, yeah, that was well put, but I don't have anything.
Okay, for me, I think actually this survey's kind of hit on some of these, which I think is important. I'm a little concerned that some of our schools need to put more focus and effort on improving school behaviors. When I looked at Memorial's 23-24 student handbook and compared it to this year's student handbook, I'm concerned with some of the changes. Kids are smart and they adapt to change, but it's very important to have uniform, concise, and very clear rules and consequences. And I think that's something that we can improve in as a district, and it's very important, it's no different than if you're married with kids and you and your wife have different rules. Well, the kids know how to work that, right? So why would we think students don't know how to work that? So teachers and staff and administrators all need to have the same rule book, and they have to go by the same rule book. Otherwise, kids are going to manipulate it. That's just human nature. I know we as the board, we just want uniformity among our schools at the same level so our kids can know what to expect and we can give them a good environment to learn. So there are the board member reports, but I am happy to report that we have a new West Albany student board member, AJ Howard. Thank you for joining us. And senior, and your turn to give your report.
Hi, I'm AJ Howard. I am a senior at West Albany High School. The first week back last week was, really wonderful. There's a lot of warmth from a lot of students going back to school, seeing a lot of our wonderful teachers again. So for some school events, there was a football game last Friday at Bend, and the Friday before that at our home, which we won, but we lost in Bend. There's a football game this Friday at home. We're versus Caldera, and the theme is Whiteout for the student section. There's been going on rehearsals for the fall play, which is, I think, performing October 11th and 12th. There's a boys soccer game actually tonight versus Thurston. And then there's a girls volleyball game versus Silverton this Thursday. Boys soccer game versus Ashland again this Saturday. There's also been, starting this Friday, Model UN club meetings where anyone's, welcome to join. This first day of school, there was a really beautiful sunrise for the seniors. And also last Friday, there was a really, wonderful pep assembly where I felt, at least, and a lot of my friends felt that the student sections were really involved with that. A lot of students have also been noticing much larger class sizes this year, and some students have been feeling very inconvenienced having to walk through the gym, which was where they can't walk through the gym, which was recently renovated. So that's what I have.
AJ, thank you for the report and welcome. Okay, next up, community, and school presentations. Doesn't look like we have any. And then consent agenda. Licensed.
I move to approve the licensed.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah, well,
No.
I was just gonna say, Katie Ross Kelly's name on here, and maybe it's not appropriate, but glad we're getting her back. She was the first nurse we ever hired. When we hired Katie the first time around, we didn't have any nurses in the district. So she must have left. I think I knew that, but glad to see her back. She's a phenomenal school nurse, and this district sometimes lacks history because we kind of have a gap where we lost it. So she's somebody with a lot of history in the district and the growth of the nursing department. So congratulations, Katie, if you're around somewhere watching this, and lucky to have her back.
I got to second that. I walked into North Albany Middle School and she was there, and I said, how lucky are they, when I heard her.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic nurse.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next up, personnel classified.
I'll move to approve the personnel classified as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, minutes, regular board meeting, 8/26/24.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next up, we're to board business. J1, board policy updates, local wellness program. Andy and Dave.
It's an old business item, second reading. Dave, if you have any questions, Dave can answer, I think, the next two. These we had at the last meeting. First one is local wellness program. Anything?
Roger, you got something?
I have a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next up, J1B, EFAA-AR, reimbursable school meals and milk programs.
Again, we had a discussion at the last meeting. If you have any questions, otherwise recommend to approve.
I'll move to approve the administrative regulations EFAA-AR as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next up is reports, restraint and exclusion. Bruce and Krista.
Krista and team will be presenting this tonight.
Right. Good evening, gentlemen of the board. We are here to report on the annual restraint and seclusion data. And so I'm Krista McGuire. I'm the Director of Special Programs. And with me, I have Patrick Kennedy, one of our program coordinators, and Rebecca Wellman from our district behavior team. Patrick and Rebecca are both also our MANT trainers. And so they are going to help with the presentation tonight. So I will turn it over to Rebecca.
All right, thank you. Good evening. MANT, training in gaps. MANT is our physical intervention system that we have adopted, and that helps us to train our staff to safely intervene with students. But most of MANT is really about how to prevent a student from escalating and how to help a student if they are escalating to prevent physical intervention. So MANT really starts with healthy relationships. It's at the foundation of what we teach. And we all know that when we are connected, we're connected with our coworkers, we're connected with our students. When our students are connected with each other and the staff, that we feel safe and ready to learn, and we have a safe community. Another basic foundation of MANT is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We train this with all of the staff that goes through MANT because we really want to look behind the behavior and see what it is that our students are needing and that we're needing. And so we know that we all need to have our basic human needs met. We need to feel safe and secure. We need to have healthy relationships in order to learn and in order to teach. We also teach the crisis cycle, and MANT's crisis cycle really helps us know how to intervene at each phase of the crisis cycle and how to also assess ourselves in the crisis cycle so that we can really support students. Our MANT team, like Krista said, we have 4 team members, and that is Patrick Kennedy, Andrew Cannon, Jacob Peterson, and myself. We train all of the special education teachers, special education assistants, personal care assistants. We train deans and behavior coaches, and we train administrators. We train school bus drivers. So we do a lot of training throughout the year. We do initial trainings for those staff members who are new, and we do an annual recertification. So the MANT intervention system requires that you get recertified once a year. We also debrief with school teams. We can actually go to the debrief and help them with the actual debrief. We often get questions before a debrief to help them do a better job of debriefing. We go to schools and we work with building teams on the actual physical skills. And so we'll do refreshers with them throughout the year. So if they have any questions or if they just want us to come in and help with that, we do that. We also provide professional development. Principals will ask us to come to buildings, and we might do just one chapter at a time in small PDs. So this slide really summarizes those foundations of healthy relationships and Maslow's looking behind those behaviors. I really want to emphasize, though, that staff are trained to use seclusion and restraint as the very last option. So in MANT, we do train a graded hierarchy of interventions, and that means that we use all of our skills possible before we go to physical intervention. And this is just a list of some of the preventative strategies that we have here in GAPS. We have a lot of strategies in the classrooms, in the schools. We have a lot of interventions and supports. We have PD for staff. And we also have the district behavior team, which works with building teams, supporting students, supporting plans, and getting more individual, working on FBAs and maybe intensive supports for students. And I'll hand it over to Patrick.
So these are the numbers that we took based on reports that were provided to us from school teams. So if there was a physical restraint or a seclusion that took place in a school, and the debrief that Rebecca had mentioned before, those are recorded onto a form that is filled out by the team together, and then that data is submitted to us, and so we take our data from that. So the total number of physical restraints that we had in last school year was 41. Incidences of seclusion in our school district last year was 4. Seclusions in a locked room, meaning a student was secluded by themselves and they were locked in the room, was 0. Total number of students placed in a physical restraint was 26. Number of students placed in a seclusion, again, was 4. And then the number of incidents that resulted in injury or death, fortunately 0 death, but 13 injuries during those restraints. And then the number of students who were placed in a physical restraint or seclusion more than 10 times in the course of a school year was 0. And then the number of incidences where personnel of the public education program administering the restraint or seclusion were not trained was 5 incidences.
I had a quick question. F, number of injuries, or number of incidents that resulted in injuries, it was only 13. Is that 13 cases of a MANT team member, or is that someone that you've trained? Or it seems, I guess just from hearing anecdotes throughout the year, it seemed like there was more than 13 injuries.
So to clarify, this would be injuries related to the use of a restraint or seclusion.
Gotcha.
So these aren't incident reports. Incident reports aren't part of, this is a report that we have to give the data to the Oregon Department of Education. And so there could be other injuries that are not in the
related
course
to
of
restraint.
restraint or
Okay.
seclusion. And those are recorded through our incident report system, so those would not be reflected in this.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification.
It's a pretty big jump. 13 is a lot higher than it's ever been, 4 times as high as last year. And it's a 30-year incidence resulted in injury. So do you have a thought about that or why?
My suspicion, these aren't necessarily, this is based off of the staff who are completing the report at the time they're completing the report. So in the course of a restraint, if they were injured, and I think that typically this corresponds to not necessarily being injured during the actual restraint, but that they were injured prior to then making the decision in order to intervene. And I think we see a lot of injury reports and a lot of incident reports for very minor injuries, as well as more significant injuries. And so I think that it's a reflection of staff reporting, some level of, yes, I sustained an injury during this incident.
This is going to be, so I'm going to ask you a controversial question. And feel free to just defer to Andy or not answer. But I guess what it sounds like you might be saying is that as staff has become more educated and concerned about a lack of response to being injured, their ability to report on injury has increased. Not necessarily they're not actually maybe being treated much differently than they have in the past in terms of how the kids are interacting with their physical health, but rather their ability to report it has increased, and so then that number is a reflection of that,
Potentially.
as opposed to the training being worse or some other reason that we would see more injury.
I think that it's awareness and just
Okay.
advocating for self-care as well.
I'd buy that.
All right, and so then this is just the data in terms of how the breakdown is. And the reason that this data is important is, again, we're looking for discrepancies. Are certain groups being experiencing restraint and seclusion at a much higher rate than what the population would warrant? And so of the students that were restrained, 23 or 79% identify as white, whereas the district data is 64%. And so they're kind of overrepresented in that. Multiracial was 20%, whereas multiracial in the district is only 8%. However, then all of those other categories were 0. And so it was, I think that on the data, it was white and potentially Native American Indian that would put them in that multiracial category. As far as Hispanic ethnicity, 5 of the students, or 17%, were of the students who were restrained were Hispanic. In terms of looking at gender, we do see a greater experience for male students. At 79% of the students that experienced restraint or seclusion were male, whereas only 51% of our population is male. And then, of course, then female is underrepresented in the data. Non-binary, there was 1, which would represent 3%. The students who are on IEPs was 69%. And so we do know that our students on IEPs are restrained or secluded at a much higher rate than our students who are not on IEPs. And then our economically disadvantaged, it reflects 20 or 100%, and that's because of the district free lunch or lunch for all. We don't really have the data in the same way, so all of them reflect that. So that's not necessarily a meaningful data point for this report. And so that is the annual restraint and seclusion report. Do you have any additional questions?
So 9 non-disabled students needed to be restrained last year. Do you think that were they pre-referral or like kindergarten kids, or do you think that's just a reflection of something else? It seems odd to me.
I think that it's potentially a reflection. Each of those students, we did this last year, we had fewer students that were restrained multiple times. We had a lot of students that were restrained one time. And so I think that could be indicative of a student who, may be experiencing trauma or may have some other issues and not be identified, potentially could be analyze that for that information to really look. And I'm not sure if either of you kind of have an idea of those 9 students. And I would say of those, each of those students was likely only restrained. It was a single incident and not something that was happening ongoing. And so
That's okay. That could happen. Terrible tragedy, but put a plan in place, reduce the triggers, preload it, don't ever see the behavior again.
Yeah.
Good. And then my other question is the seclusion rooms, or seclusion, the 4 seclusion incidents. We don't have seclusion rooms, I don't think.
No.
So tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
yeah, so we do not have seclusion rooms. a couple of reasons for it. We don't use seclusion frequently enough to really warrant, and we don't want that to be our go-to response in creating seclusion rooms. You kind of create that pattern and that expectation that though, this is where we go. In addition, when you have designated seclusion rooms, you have to physically sometimes get the student into those spaces. Usually if a student requires that level of intervention, they're not going to go willingly. And so then it becomes both a restraint and a seclusion because you've got to get the student there. The 4 incidents, again, they were all isolated incidents. They didn't, none of those students experienced multiple seclusions. So it was 4 separate students. Each student was secluded one time. 3 of them happened in general education classrooms where there had been a room clear done, and a teacher made the determination that they still didn't feel safe with the room clear, and temporarily held the door shut until a trained person, a trained person would
Okay,
come
good.
in and intervene, and they were all like less than a minute to
Okay.
a minute and a half in duration.
Good, that's what I was trying to understand, is were these kids already in a little room that then everybody bailed out, or did they just leave them alone in the classroom?
They
setting?
were just
in a
left alone
classroom.
in a classroom.
Okay, thank you.
When we get a report that says seclusion, we will work with the building team to kind of identify what was happening and to come up with a plan.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think the gen ed teacher and the kids getting out of the room awaiting the experts is much different than having a kid in a tiny room and having the expert bail because things are getting bad. So, yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, K2, Operations and Bond Report. Dave?
Yeah, a quick report for you tonight. Last meeting, I gave you a report on the activities of all the departments that happened over the summer. I want to focus a little bit on the beginning of the school and also just highlight some of our bigger projects with facilities. First one is Central HV update. It was nice when I drove to school and I saw that red sunset come up. The first thing that I thought about was the smoke that was causing that. And for the first time at Central, we had filtered fresh air coming into the building. So I was really happy as I drove in one morning to know that that was occurring at Central. So we still have some updates to do at Central. It's not fully functional, but we are bringing in outside filtered air into that building that's controlled and tempered with dampeners. Our staff has done a great job with there. They're still working to hook up heat to those. We still have heat in the room if we need it with the current radiators. But they're working there every morning until they get that work done. So, and we've noticed considerably cooled building with that upgrade to that system. So that was great to hear. The South Albany High School chiller line was ruptured. It's been leaking, I think, for some time. We finally explored and found where the leak was. That's been repaired. And that was the big project. We have a little bit of restoration of the ground. Those pipes are about 10 feet underneath the ground. So we had a little work to do there this summer. Some delays in ordering pipes, but we were able to get it back up online, I believe, Tuesday, Wednesday. We also discovered throughout the system there's some inconsistencies at South with one room being pretty chilled and the other room maybe being a little warm. So we did an on-site inspection of each room, found some things that weren't set right, some motors that were gone, so we're making some adjustments and repairs there as well. The CTP modular that Patrick's in back there, we did get the carpet in. He said it looks fantastic. We got some new refrigerators in there to do lunch there as well. It's being painted today or tomorrow. Yep, and some repair of some dry rot, and then the outside ramp, accessible ramp is being repaired as well, a new one being installed there. We had a contractor out to look at the roof. They said they could make it's good for the next couple of years, so we postponed that project with the roofing there. Sunrise looks good. Really pleased with Triple Wellman. Their last, at the closing time, their communication with the building principal about needs to be done before school starts. They did a fantastic job with that. We have some things still functioning in the boiler room. They're still tidying up a few things. We have some heating repairs in the gym that we're working on, and also some roof drains that I spoke about before that we're still in process with. So we're not completely done there, but we're within budget and things are looking really good. North Albany Elementary School had a big project at the end of the school. We had some safety inspections going on there. We've had an ongoing issue there of the ground being really wet and soft in the wintertime. So instead of making just a slight repair to there, we decided to tear out pretty much all the chips out of the playground, put in drain pipe, make it right, and then bring back in chips into that facility. And that was done. They didn't have their playground the first day, but we got it there on Wednesday. Transportation, they had a strong start to the year. They still are short drivers, 3 general education drivers, 1 special ed, and 5 relief drivers. We have 2 drivers that are in training, and we have 4 that we have offers for employment for, and we're hoping that they start their training soon. Cindy reports that ridership is up, which is good, but this also means that we have to do some modifications to our routes because of delays and dropping off more students on specific routes. So we're making those adjustments. We have a few buses that are late to schools, and then, but we'll make those adjustments and correct those and tighten those up a bit. Today was the first day of kindergarten, so we did send out a notice to all families to let them know to expect delays. It just takes time to get those kindergartners on and off those buses, and especially the first day. We implemented a new process this year to pre-register kindergartners for the bus, and that significantly helped in preparing for where they are and their drops and giving the bus drivers those names, and that was a big help. CAP program, as you know, went away, and the Boys and Girls Club and YMCA picked those up. We're routing those students to those facilities, and that's gone really well. Food service, I think Scott's was back here. He must have left. Scott's done a great job with the food service. We have 1 employee left to hire. All of our schools, as you know, are continuing with CEP, and we have Patrick's program set up out there to be free as well. We had to make some adjustments in paperwork. Technology, again, I think has had a great start of the year. And one of the things that helped that I didn't report in my last 2 weeks ago in the last meeting was the 4 amazing students that we hired this summer. Basically, those students refreshed and cleaned all of our Chromebooks across the district. They put together carts, and they just did a fantastic job for us, and we really appreciated their support. And technology department said it's the best set of students they've had since they've been hiring students. It was fantastic. Good experience for those kids, and without them, we would have struggled getting all those done. They didn't always laugh at my jokes, but they were great workers, and they did a great job for us. So that's it, unless you have some questions.
Yeah, you talked about refrigerators for the transition program. Is there plans to have more of a kitchen environment in there, or do they have something like that?
Patrick would have to maybe speak to that, but I think, and maybe Andy can too. I know they've set up to be compliant to be able to serve food into the buildings and have.
Well, I'm more concerned
meals.
about meal prep being sort of a fundamental living skill, which is sort of the purpose
Yeah,
of the
so
program.
hopefully in the future, we can expand that building. In fact, one of the reasons the ramp is back there, we bought an aluminum ramp that we can move to other spots, because if we do expand that and build a kitchen off of that, we don't want to destroy the ramp that we just purchased. So the idea is to expand off the back in the future and possibly put in a residential type kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it would also be a prefab building. It wouldn't be the same one that sits behind Memorial and West. We think that's the end of life.
Yeah.
So right now, we have them beginning the day and still using that portable, which allows some of those things to be taught in the morning and then general migration out.
Okay. Thank you.
If I might.
Roger.
So, thank you. So the situation towards the end of last week was, it was hot. And the OSAA has some guidance in regard to when you can do what. And so at South Albany on Thursday, they moved some activities indoors based on the premise of what the temperature would be, because the air conditioner would be working, and they moved inside and that didn't go as exactly as planned. I got the impression that it was just a thermostat issue, or was that part of the chiller issue there? And was the air conditioning not actually available in that part of the building at that time?
Was it the gym?
Jim, I think it was the cafeteria area in the band room.
Yeah, I did not hear of that specific incident, but I know the chiller was functional, so it could have been a thermostat issue, but I wasn't aware of that.
So are the thermostats actually on site or in the building, or are they controlled by the central office here?
It's a mixture. So some buildings are under our controls and at the district level, and some are in the individual rooms. So it's a mixture in that building.
So if there's, and so does the leadership at each school know who's in control of the stuff?
I would say generally, yes. And in most cases, it's all controlled and set points are controlled at the district level. And generally, they're night purges that we do to purge the building of air. The set points are generally 72 for cooling, and the heating usually is 68. I think that's the district standard.
So is there
We found some that were not set at that, though, especially in Building 2.
okay, so I get the ultimate question is, if something's not going right, is there a number they can call after, or somebody they can email or text after regular school hours? If it's controlled by the district and, again, something's not going right.
Yeah,
Who do
we-
they call? You?
It depends. If it's facility usage, they call our facility usage person. If not, they call me or Lauren. typically.
And someone is available, somebody is manning that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have people on vacation when they can go in and log into their computer and change the settings for us or find out what's not functioning remotely.
As long as they're manning it while they're
They're,
on.
yeah,
Okay.
they're managing.
Facility use mean not a district program.
yeah.
Whereas district people would have a different person. Is that what I heard? Is that what I
Yeah,
understood? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we have no new business, no new future agenda items or other business. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.